September 25, 1780. George Washington is riding toward West Point. He expects breakfast with one of his most trusted generals. Instead, he discovers the greatest betrayal in American history. His best general has vanished. Secret plans for America's most important fortress have been handed to the British, and the officer responsible is the same man who had saved the Revolution more times than almost anyone else. His name was Benedict Arnold. Today, Americans remember him as history's greatest traitor. But before he betrayed the Revolution, he was one of its greatest heroes. This story is not really about treason. It is about transformation. A man who began as a merchant, became a patriot, became a hero, was forgotten, became bitter, became a conspirator, and finally became the one thing he had spent his entire life fighting against. Every step was connected to the one before it. The man who handed West Point to the British was built, piece by piece, by the same war he had once bled to win. To understand the traitor, you have to start at the beginning. Benedict Arnold was born in Norwich, Connecticut, in 1741. His father had been a respected man once, a businessman, a captain in the colonial militia, a name that meant something. Then the drinking started. The elder Arnold drank away the family fortune, the reputation, and eventually his own life. Young Benedict watched his father get arrested for public intoxication on the streets of Norwich more than once. 2 siblings died of yellow fever. His mother died when he was 18. His father followed 2 years later. By 20, Arnold had nothing, no inheritance, no family name worth trading on, and a burning, almost violent need to prove he was not his father. He built himself from scratch, an apothecary shop on Chapel Street in New Haven, then overseas trade, rum, molasses, horses, manufactured goods, running routes that more cautious merchants avoided. He captained his own ships. When a sailor insulted him in a port tavern, he challenged the man to a duel. That was Benedict Arnold, thin-skinned, proud, and absolutely unwilling to be disrespected. A man shaped by humiliation into someone who would go to almost any length to protect his standing. By 1775, he had wealth, reputation, and a fury at British taxation policies, strangling merchants like himself. When word arrived that shots had been fired at Lexington and Concord, he did not hesitate. The merchant was about to become something else entirely. Arnold assembled his militia company and marched toward the fighting. What happened next surprised everyone, including Arnold himself. He was a military mind of extraordinary natural talent, and the Revolution was about to find that out. He convinced the Massachusetts Committee of Safety to authorize an attack on Fort Ticonderoga, the British stronghold on Lake Champlain, packed with cannons the Continental Army desperately needed. He raced north, clashed with Ethan Allen over command, and together they took the fort in a pre-dawn raid on May 10, 1775. Those captured cannons were later dragged 300 miles through winter snow to the heights above Boston, where Henry Knox trained them on the harbor. The British evacuated the city. Arnold had helped make it happen. His reward was a political knife in the back. Allen's supporters lobbied for sole credit. Massachusetts investigated Arnold's conduct. His commission was quietly revoked. He had helped capture one of the most strategically important positions in North America. His reward was erasure. A different man might have walked away. Arnold escalated. Later that year, he led 1,000 men through 200 miles of uncharted Maine wilderness toward Quebec City, one of the most grueling marches in American history. Maps were wrong. Food ran out. Nearly 400 men deserted. The rest ate candles, shoe leather, soap. Arnold pushed forward on foot through swamps and ice, starving alongside his men, refusing to quit. They reached Quebec in November. The assault on New Year's Eve failed. Montgomery was killed. Arnold took a musket ball through his left leg and was carried from the field, then directed the remaining troops from a hospital bed until it was over. No victory, a shattered leg, and a reputation among the men who survived that march as the most fearless officer in the Continental Army. Congress barely acknowledged it. No promotion, no public thanks, just the expectation that Arnold would heal up and do it again, which is exactly what he did. In the fall of 1776, Arnold accomplished something most military historians consider one of the most important strategic achievements of the entire war. Almost nobody knows about it. The British were preparing a massive invasion down Lake Champlain to split the American colonies in half. Arnold, with almost no naval experience, was ordered to build a fleet and stop them. He constructed 16 gunboats in weeks, ugly, slow, undermanned, drove his men relentlessly, and positioned the fleet in a tactical ambush behind Valcourisland. When the British sailed past, Arnold opened fire from behind, forcing them into a narrow channel. He lost the battle. He lost almost every ship, but he bought something far more valuable, an entire year. The British had to regroup. In that year, the Americans strengthened their defenses, recruited more troops, and prepared for the battle that would change everything. Military historians agree, without Arnold's stand at Valcourisland, the British split the colonies in 1776, and the revolution ends before France ever joins. Congress promoted 5 officers junior to him, ahead of him the following February. Washington personally wrote urging Arnold's promotion, calling the oversight a serious mistake. Congress ignored him. The British invasion Arnold had delayed by a year finally came in 1777. General Burgoyne marched 8,000 soldiers south through upstate New York. The American commander opposing him, General Horatio Gates, preferred fortifications and patience to fighting. Arnold hated Gates. The feeling was mutual. At the First Battle of Saratoga, Arnold nearly broke the British center with a fierce frontal assault. Gates ordered him to pull back. Arnold was furious. Gates stripped him of his command. 3 weeks later, with the decisive battle underway and Arnold officially sidelined, he mounted his horse and rode directly into the fight. Without orders, without authorization, without a command. What followed was one of the most legendary moments of the Revolution. Arnold galloped along the American line, rallying troops by sheer force of personality, leading charges against fortified positions. Soldiers later said he fought like a man who did not care if he lived or died. At the storming of the Bremen Redoubt, he led the charge himself. A Hessian soldier shot his horse. The horse fell on Arnold's already injured leg, shattering it. He was carried from the field screaming. 10 days later, Burgoyne surrendered 6,000 men at Saratoga. It was the turning point of the Revolution, the victory that convinced France to enter the war and ultimately made independence possible. The man most responsible was lying in a hospital bed, his leg destroyed. Gates took full credit. Congress celebrated Gates. Newspapers praised Gates. Arnold was a footnote. A surgeon who treated him later recalled that the general was in constant agony, not just from the leg, but from the knowledge that someone else was being celebrated for what he had done. This was not the first time, but it was the time that broke something inside him. The leg healed badly, 2 inches shorter than the other. Chronic pain for the rest of his life. Congress finally promoted him to Major General, but refused to restore his seniority. The 5 men promoted ahead of him still outranked him, a promotion and an insult in the same breath. In 1778, Washington appointed Arnold military commander of Philadelphia. Arnold, unable to ride a horse or lead troops, accepted. He threw lavish parties. He speculated using his military position. He used government wagons for private goods. Pennsylvania's civilian government charged him with corruption. Some of it was true, but some of it was also this: Congress had never repaid the thousands of dollars Arnold had spent out of his own pocket keeping soldiers fed during the Quebec March. The government he bled for owed him money it had simply never paid back. He was court-martialed in 1779, acquitted of most charges, and sentenced to a formal reprimand from Washington. Washington delivered it as gently as he could. Arnold experienced it as a public execution. Then he met Peggy Shippen, 18 years old, from one of Philadelphia's most prominent Loyalist families. During the British occupation, she had been close friends with Major John Andre, a charming British intelligence officer. For years, historians debated Peggy's role. We now know she was in on it from the beginning. Not a bystander, a facilitator, possibly a driving force. The bitter general was becoming something worse. By May of 1779, weeks after his wedding, Arnold initiated secret contact with the British through Peggy's old friend, Major Andre. Invisible Ink, Code Names, a book cipher based on Blackstone's commentaries. Arnold was Gustavus. Andre was John Anderson. He offered intelligence, troop positions, supply routes, in exchange for money. The British were skeptical at first. A man willing to betray his own army was either a gift or a trap. Over the next year, Arnold fed them a steady stream of valuable intelligence, but he was playing for a bigger prize. In August of 1780, he secured command of West Point, the most strategically important fortress in North America, the key to the Hudson River, the key to splitting the colonies. Washington, still trusting his old comrade, gave it to him. Arnold immediately began dismantling it from the inside. He dispersed troops on unnecessary assignments. He delayed repairs. He rerouted supplies. He left defensive positions understaffed. He sold off provisions meant for the garrison and pocketed the money while his own soldiers went hungry. Every decision he made was designed to make the fortress collapse when the British struck. The price, £20,000 and a brigadier general's commission in the British Army. He was convinced that if the plot succeeded, the war was over. The British would control the Hudson. French supply lines would be severed. The Continental Army would collapse. The conspirator believed he was ending a war. He was stepping off a cliff. On September 21, 1780, Arnold met Andre on the western bank of the Hudson and handed over detailed plans of West Point's fortifications, troop positions, artillery, weak points. Andre tucked them into his boot and headed back to British lines by land, in civilian clothes. That was the mistake. On September 23rd, 3 American militiamen stopped a man on a road near Tarrytown. Too refined, too British. When they searched him, they found papers inside his stockings, West Point's fortifications, artillery positions, notes in Arnold's handwriting. Andre tried to bribe them, his gold watch, any sum of money. He told them he could make them rich. They refused. Word reached Arnold 4 days later as Washington was arriving at West Point for breakfast. Arnold read the dispatch, understood instantly, excused himself from the table, told Peggy, rushed to the river, commandeered a boat, rowed downstream to the British warship Vulture in the Hudson. He escaped with minutes to spare. Washington arrived at West Point, learned that Arnold had vanished and Andre had been caught with the fortress plans in his boot, and stood in stunned silence. Then he said simply, "Arnold has betrayed us. Whom can we trust now?" Andre was hanged on October 2, 1780. He went to his death with composure, asking only to be shot like a soldier rather than hanged like a criminal. The request was denied. Even Americans mourned him as a brave man caught in a dishonorable scheme. Arnold received his British commission and a payment of £6,315, far less than the £20,000 promised because the plot had failed. The British told him a successful West Point was worth £20,000. A blown operation and a dead spy were worth considerably less. Arnold was furious about the reduced payment, which tells you everything you need to know about where his priorities had landed. Arnold spent the rest of the war burning the country he had once saved. He led British raids into Virginia, torching Richmond. He commanded the attack on New London, Connecticut, his own home state, burning the town and killing surrendered American defenders at Fort Griswold in what witnesses called a massacre. Washington authorized a secret mission to kidnap him. It failed. After Yorktown, Arnold sailed to England expecting a hero's welcome. He received polite indifference. King George III met him once. When an aide asked the king his opinion of Arnold, George reportedly said he appreciated the service, but could not help wondering what Arnold might do if he ever felt England had wronged him. Arnold died in London on June 14, 1801, 60 years old, declining health, mounting debts, no monument. His grave in St. Mary's Church in Battersea was eventually lost during a renovation. Today there is no definitive marker on his burial site. His reported final words, "Let me die in the old uniform in which I fought my battles for freedom. May God forgive me for putting on any other." Whether he actually said it is debated, but the story endures because it is the one thing about Benedict Arnold that feels completely true. At Saratoga National Historical Park, there is a monument to the battle that does not name him. It depicts a single military boot, the leg he shattered leading the charge at Bemis Heights. The inscription honors the most brilliant soldier of the Continental Army without including his name. It is the only war memorial in America dedicated to a body part instead of a person. A hero's contribution remembered, a traitor's name erased. There is something unsettling about this story that goes beyond the word traitor. Because if you strip the label away and look at the record, the Maine wilderness, Valcourisland, Saratoga, you find a man who was genuinely one of the finest military minds the Revolution produced, a man who nearly died twice, who spent his own money to keep soldiers fed, who won the battle that brought France into the war, and who was repaid with indifference, political backstabbing, financial betrayal, and a public reprimand. None of that justifies what he did. But it forces a question America has never been entirely comfortable answering. The transformation from merchant to patriot to hero to forgotten hero to bitter general to conspirator to traitor was not a sudden fall. It was a staircase, and every step down was connected to the one before it. Arnold did not betray America because he was evil. He betrayed America because he was human, because he was proud and wounded and financially desperate and surrounded by people who had stopped seeing what he had given. And because the distance between a man who gives everything for a cause and a man who turns against it is not as large as we would like to believe. What do you owe a man who gives everything for a country that gives him nothing back? America never answered that question for Benedict Arnold, and in the silence of that unanswered question, a traitor was made. If this story changed how you think about betrayal and what creates it, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Do you think Arnold was a villain, a victim, or something in between? The debate is older than the country itself, and if you learned something today, smash that like button so more people can find this channel.